In 1996, childhood friends Nelson Gonzalez and Alex Aguilera established Psychi of Miami, soon to be renamed Alienware. And apparently in the early days, the mere sight of an Alienware system was enough to get any PC gaming enthusiast slipperier than a greased up pig. But then, in 2002, Dell started eyeing them up from across the dingy subway, and finally pulling the trigger in 2006. And as the story goes, Dell hooked Alienware up to the corporate milking machine, slowly bleeding them of all their life, resulting in the dried up husk that is Alienware today. But was Alienware actually that good pre-Dell, or were we all just stupider back then? Well, to find out, I've bought what I can only assume to be a very used old Alienware. But first, today's video is sponsored by Corsair's new IQ Link MacGuffins. Being able to daisy chain all of your RGB and fans together with a single cable run makes life so much easier. I recently swapped a bunch of IQ Link fans into a test system and had a great frustration-free time magneting everything together. And because of all the heartache I saved dealing with RGB clutter, I didn't blow an artery struggling with a corrupt Windows install. So if you want a great-looking, easy-to-use premium RGB solution, check out IQ Link using the link in the video description. Ooh, I don't know, I feel like this is how I blow out my rectum, but let's... Ooh. Cool! Ugh, it smells like single dude house. But aside from that, it is huge and kind of magnificent. And I'm sure it doubles as a male chastity belt. We've got this really cool looking ventilation on the front with some front I/O, and then above that we have... Look at that door! I mean, the mechanism does feel pretty worn out, but that's quite a mechanism. Now, in terms of the acid green paint, you can see that it was once very high quality, although it's kind of had its teeth kicked in at this point. I really would have liked to see a new in-box one, because that is some high quality looking paint. Now, the exact model is an Alienware Area 51 7500, which was launched in 2007. Which is after Dell bought Alienware. But despite that, as far as I understand, it's one of the last Alienwares. The handover was gradual, and the first Dell Alienware branded system was the M17X laptop launched in 2009. So this potentially counts as peak Alienware. The next step is to remove that voluptuous side panel to see if the guts stand up to the hype, and what state the internals of this 16-year-old system from eBay is in. Oh, there we go. Whoa. Oh, it smells so much like dude in here. Whoa, look at how neat and clean it is in here. And aside from some mismatched RAM, it looks exactly like pictures from back in the day, which makes me think this is a completely unmolested example of one, which I can imagine is quite rare considering that it's older than some mountains in the Himalayas. Now, aside from this basically being a time capsule, the next thing you'll notice is the quality of the components. This is just high-end components from the period the system came out in. There is no proprietary crap to be seen. Aside from this little RGB fan hub daughter board thing in the basement, which makes sense, RGB was rare back then, and it even has these little contact pins for the fan and lighting in the side panel, which is something that even modern cases brag about. Component-wise, at least in regards to the CPU, I'm not 100% sure what we have in here, some Core 2 Duo, but I do recognize the graphics card, and it's got my internal baby Dawid giddy with excitement. This is an 8800 GTX, a legendary graphics card from 2006. Real excited to get to play with one of these. The motherboard was also real snazzy back in the day and should allow us to overclock the crap out of the mystery Core 2 Duo in here. And considering the case layout, the cable management's also causing some adult feelings to happen. Look at that IDE cable and how they've routed all of this stuff. Like, it looks amazing. In terms of the power supply, I think this is still the stock one, which makes it a 1000 watt power supply with no 80+ rating. I don't know if it's a very good power supply, but let me know in the comment section down below if you know more about it. In the front here, you can see we don't have any hard drives. This is how the eBay seller sold it, so we are going to have to add our own storage, but it's cool that the HDDs had their own little fan to cool them. Speaking of airflow, we've got this 120mm in the front with the cavernous space behind the alien head, providing it with ample room to breathe. Very un-Dell of it. Physically, especially taking its age into account, this system is what nerd boners are made of, and not that weird hate boner caused by Dell Alienware systems. I really think their reputation is well deserved. So now it's time to drop a hard drive in here, or more realistically an SSD, so that I don't spend my whole life waiting for Windows to install, and then we can see how it handles games in 2023. And then I'm just gonna... Very heavy, my god. Okay, well now we get to see if it works. It was listed 4 parts, but that could be because it didn't have a hard drive in it? No way. The alien head is the power button. Okay, this is the best PC ever. Whoa, that's a lot of sound. The alien head actually lights up as well. Oh, the alien head on the side also turns on. Okay, it is not posting. Oh, it sounds like something terrible's happening in here. Let's see. Okay, it sounds like it's this that's shouting like that. Now, luckily, because this motherboard is very fancy, it does have post codes. So let's Google what that means. Apparently it means waiting for user. So do I just like press space? Let's restart it. Hey, we've got an E6400 in here, which I think means I guessed correctly in the previous video, and it's very close to the CPU I had in my first gaming system. The Intel Core 2 Duo E6400 was a $200-ish dual-core CPU that really brought the fight to AMD, and it has quite the trick up its sleeve that we'll explore a bit later on. Wow, now that it's on, it is making a lot of smells. After that very useful observation, I ran DDU wipe and installed the final legacy drivers from 200 years ago for the 8800 GTX. Ooh, it runs Half-Life 2 pretty well, which you'd hope. It's got an 8800 GTX in it. This game is from 2004, and this is a flagship GPU from 2006. Yeah, I'm glad it runs it well. This is a 1080p high settings. Although once you get outside, things are a lot less convincing, seemingly entirely because of the little Core 2 Duo. Oh no, that's quite the bottleneck. Next, I want to give BioShock a try, which was visually a revolutionary game for like 2 months until Crysis came out. See here, it's got DX10 texture options, and the 8800 GTX was the first DX10 GPU, so I'm curious to see how it runs it. Unfortunately, for some reason, MSI Afterburner's overlay wasn't working, so all we get is the little fraps counter in the top. Very informative. Oh yeah, look at the water physics. I remember how excited the developers were about it. They were all like, oh, the water is so real. Ooh, fire makes it struggle a little, but we're still very comfortably over, oh, never mind. I was gonna say comfortably over 60 frames per second there, but it does dip below that. Although in fairness to the 8800 GTX, in 2007, 1080p was considered a high resolution. So it's kind of hopeful trying GTA 5. It launched, but now it's just been loading for the last 15 minutes. I'll give it some more time, but it's not seeming likely. Oh yes, some fun GTA 5 render struggles. Okay, outside it seems to have stabilized with about 20 frames per second at 1080p. This is like low-end modern iGPU performance. Although, to be fair, with a low-end modern iGPU, things start disappearing way later. Let's try drop it to 720p. Uh-oh, and it's crashed. Oh no, that's a disaster. Does that mean I have to wait 20 minutes for it to load in again? Okay, it's been a very long time, but we're back in, and the performance is basically the same because of the CPU bottleneck. I've been so desensitized to terrible GTA 5 performances that, like, like, I'm not even surprised when I see this kind of crap anymore. Although this is particularly bad. I think there's meant to be, like, buildings over here. Oh, yeah, there they are. Oh damn, optimal settings does not trust the power of this PC very much. Now before we reveal the Core 2 Duo's secret weapon, obviously we need to try the Widowmaker. Yo, that's crazy. Even the mighty Alienware is just giving us like 40 frames per second at medium settings. Although granted it is a 1080p. Oh damn, yeah, here with the sunrise we've got just over 30 frames per second. Crysis was such a beast. I am willing to bet though, the CPU is at least partially responsible for what's happening here. Oh, it seems like weirdly mismatched hardware configurations are a bit of a theme with Alienware systems. Although, I mean, these systems were highly configurable, so it's more this configuration's fault. Having said that, the amazing thing about $200-ish Core 2 Duos from this generation was that all you had to do was get a decent motherboard with them, overclock them a bit, and you'd get basically the same performance as a $500 Core 2 Duo. So let's do that and see if it alleviates the dumpster fire that is the CPU bottlenecking situation in this system. Yeah, okay, that should be fine. I think this motherboard does support 1333 MHz FSB speeds, so that may be it. Let's save and see if it explodes.
A few moments later.
I mean, hopefully it makes Windows run better as well. This system very much isn't equipped for running Windows 10. Yes, there we go. Look at that. 2.7-ish gigahertz. Whoa, Half-Life 2 is running way better. And in this tunnel, at least, we're almost getting 100% GPU utilization. Although the moment we got outside, the little Core 2 Duo's life started flashing in front of its eyes again. But despite that, the improvement was massive. So the moral of the story, kids, is overclock your Core 2 Duos, lest you suffer the stutters. Let's overclock it some more. Whoa, we actually had a brief second there of the CPU not being pegged to 100%, which gave us another healthy performance jump. And with pretty much no extra effort, it was just running at 3.2 gigahertz like it wasn't a big deal. I didn't think it was gonna just go to 3.2 gigahertz, but I'm glad it did, because now, at least while we're in the tunnel, the GPU is the bottleneck. But unfortunately, this was about as much performance as I could wring out of the Alienware. 3.4 was stable, but gave basically the same result, which left me no choice. So now that we've gotten the CPU to not be the bottleneck, depending on where you look, the only logical thing left to do is replace that geriatric 8800 GTX with its great grandson, the RTX 4090. Okay, now, predictably, this terrible idea has already run into a problem. With the 40 series, Nvidia introduced this stupid arson connector, which obviously the 16-year-old power supply in here doesn't have one of those. Now, I could potentially use one of these. This is a dual 8-pin to arson adapter, which should be fine because this is a 1000-watt power supply, but this 1000-watt power supply is very specifically wired for the 8800 GTX in here, and it means that it's just got two 6-pin PCIe power, which won't work with this adapter. So from my perspective, I think the best way for me to power this 4090 in this old Alienware system is by using an external power supply. I actually remember when the 8800 GTX came out, people were losing their minds over how huge it was. But compared to the 4090, it's looking pretty small, and it weighs so much less. I guess performance-wise, comparing these two graphics cards is like pitting Usain Bolt against Biden in a 1,500-meter sprint. Although in the context of running in the old Alienware, it's more like Bolt with both his kneecaps shattered and recently waterboarded. I also had a really good idea so that we can still have the side panel on. I'm just gonna kind of feed the connector through one of the open PCIe slot covers on the back. This is like the hardest part of interacting with this system is... I was gonna say putting on the side panel, but I got lost in the struggle. But after an embarrassing amount of time, the side panel finally gave in. Okay, now all you need to do is not go to the right side of the system. Then you'll never know that it's being powered in a way that'll definitely invalidate your house's fire insurance. After a very successful second boot, all I had to do was install some drivers and we were ready for some carnage. And after dropping our state-of-the-art GPU into the system, we've gained no performance. Very exciting. And that's even in the cave bit where we didn't have a CPU bottleneck before. Yeah, it's running exactly the same as before. Okay, so I don't think the overclocking did overcome our CPU bottleneck. Now, I was lying when I said that it didn't make a difference, because with the 4090, we do have actual HDMI ports, which means I'm able to run the monitor at its native 240 Hz. So I can feel the stutters a lot more clearly, which is good. If anything, GTA 5 took even longer to load. Like, at what point do I just give up? Oh, it's finally happened. But it is still running the same as it was running with the preview. Oh no. Yeah, this seems like very reasonable 4090 performance. But before we finish off the video, there is one more game we need to try. Reasonable stuff happening here. This is basically the exact same performance as with the 8800 GTX, and I think the only reason it's even a little different is because of the CPU overclock. So with that, what did we learn in today's video? Well, if you do terrible enough things to Usain Bolt's legs, even Biden will be able to outrun him. Which brings me to the end of the video. If you want more valuable life lessons like that, subscribe to the channel, and until the next video, bye-bye. Oh, and the PC's crashed. Very good.